Hello, this is John from Riverfront Interior Designers, enjoying the outdoors. And speaking of doors, today we create a Revit door family. To make this happen, we'll need two additional Revit templates. We'll use the door template to create the door frame itself and the opening, and we'll use the generic model template to actually create the door panel itself. We'll nest those two together, and we'll create our door. Okay, so hang tight, and we'll see how this works. Example of a door I'd like to create in Revit. Door has a handle, side light, door frame. And in plan view, there's different levels of detail available. Currently there is a single line with an arc. At coarse, there's medium, which has door frames and the door swing. And then finally at fine, the same rules apply. You have the door and the actual swing, and then the frames show up. Okay, so I'll try to create this door family as quickly as possible, although it does require two types of family: a generic family for the door panel itself and a separate door family for the actual door opening and trim and what have you. So there's quite a few steps involved, and it does require some previous knowledge of how parameters are set up in Revit and how to create reference planes to create these dimensional constraints. So quickly, let's build the door panel itself because it's the easiest. So I'll do new. Sorry, here under family, I'll do new family. I'll choose a generic family because the door template typically here, that creates a door opening with trim, and although you can build the door there, due to its complexity, it's easiest to create the door elsewhere. Like for example here, generic model, and then embed it into that other family. So here in the plan view, I want to launch an elevation view. So I'm going to look at it from the front. And I'm going to draw some reference planes to describe the height and the width of the door. So I'll do a reference plane here. And I'll quickly just sketch out some reference planes. And I'll establish some parameters that describe the width and height of the door. So I'll do a DI for dimension, DI. And I'll strike a dimension here. I'll do a dimension here to the reference plane at the bottom. So hit tab until you see the reference plane highlighted there. Pull that out. Now I could click on these dimensions, set up a parameter here, and create a parameter that describes the width and height of the door. However, this is going to become part of the door family. And currently family types here, these are all parameters I have. These are all out of the box Revit parameters. The width and height and thickness of the door doesn't exist here. However, if you were to categorize this as a door, you'll get some additional parameters set up by Revit automatically. So if I come into here to category, choose a family category and choose door, hit OK, then you'll notice returning to family types and seeing all my parameters, you'll get a whole slew of parameters here because now it understands that this has become a door, and there's some common parameters that are useful for doors in their list here. So width, height, and thickness have already been set up. So all I have to do is tell these that, for example, to describe the width of the door, and this to describe the height of the door. And then in plan view, I'll need another little measurement here, describes how wide the door is from this plane out. So I'll create a reference plane across here. I'll add a quick dimension across here, and ultimately that will represent the thickness of the door. And as parameters get assigned, their names show up here on the dimensions. I can quickly flex them out to make sure these are working, and that line is moving accordingly. So if I go here to my family types and check a parameter, like the thickness is 1.5 inches, I should expect that line to move. And it does. So if the model is built locked to these lines, the thickness will change and become 1.5 inches. I'll go ahead and change the width of the door to 3 feet, and I'll see it change here. This is the width. I'll change the height to 7 feet. You won't be able to see that unless you're in a front view. This is a top-down view. This is a plan view. Let's look in the front. There, 7 feet. So I'll draw my door inside of this area here. So under create, I'll use the extrusion, and I'll simply draw a box inside of here because I like to make it explicit that I'm trying to align these together, align these lines to those reference planes. So I'll typically draw a little shorter, and I'll do AL for align, and line and lock, align and lock every edge here to there. Here you want the reference plane, so hit tab until you find it right there, reference plane reference, lock, and that's your door panel. It will be the wrong size. See here, by default it's a foot thick, and you'll notice here it's stuck on that central reference plane, the one called center face back, front back, and out from there it'll be a foot thick. Here I can quickly assign it to that line in terms of its thickness. So if I do AL in plan view and connect these, then suddenly it's locked to that line there that's ½ inch thick. Now let me get rid of that 0 feet. So I'll go to Manage, Project Units, and simply tell the length to be suppress 0 feet or hide 0 feet. There. So there's my door currently. In the front view, I'll need some reference planes to perhaps create a side light. And so again, reference planes, I will draw some little construction lines here as reference planes that describes where the opening will be. I'll draw another one here and perhaps here that will ultimately decide where the center of the handle will be. And I need to have measurements for all these areas. Now, to avoid any mistakes, I can quickly just select the entire drawing here, go to my filter, and simply select all the reference planes, and then have them only appear on the screen by using Isolate Element. And here it's obvious what's on the screen. So if I do DI for dimension, I can measure this. That'll be my this area here before my glass panel. I'll do this measurement here. I will do the height, actually not the height, rather the height of the handle and the bottom of the side light. And here I have to decide, do I want these to be parameters? In other words, do I want these options to have a menu here with questions and answers? Questions are parameters. Well, in this case, I'll simply just fix these at a certain dimension. For example, I'll tell this to be exactly 6 inches. I'll tell this one to be exactly 8 inches. I will tell this to be exactly 3 feet. I will tell this line here to be exactly, let's say, a foot. And again, you can change these in parameters if you like. But I will simply lock these relationships so that they're stuck at these measurements. That should be a little bit wider. In fact, I don't want the edge to the edge of the door to the edge of the panel, the glass there. I'd rather have the width of this set up, and I'll tell the width of this to be 8 inches, for example, and I will lock that. And then I'm going to return to my drawing here by resetting the temporary hide. I can take this model of an extrusion and cut a hole out of it for that side light. So if I select this and do a edit extrusion, I can very quickly draw a rectangle in here and do all my alignments again. Align to here with that edge, lock, align to here with that edge, lock, here, lock, here, lock. Again, this has, you have to have some knowledge of how the extrusions work and how to punch holes out of 3D models with extrusions by drawing a boundary inside of a boundary. Okay, 3D view, there's my door, and there's the opening for the future side light. In the front view, I will need to quickly flex this to make sure it's doing its job. So it should get wider and taller as I flex the model. So again, here, I can change the width to 4 feet and the height to 8 feet, just to test. And you notice here, things are moving as they should. Now, I didn't set up the height. The height of this side light to the top of the door has not been established. So it's not functioning properly. It's stayed behind. So let's quickly fix that. I need one more dimension from here to here. And that it'll be it'll be locked, in my example, as a foot. So I'll take that measurement and lock it. So lo and behold, if I come back here and make the door 8 feet, you'll see that that foot follows. So that's working, that's functioning properly. Need to put a piece of glass in here. Easiest to do is just to simply draw a center line that describes where the center of the glass is. I will draw a reference plane right there. This is the area here where the glass will be. I will make this center line equal, so I'll do a dimension of this. I can't really read this very well, so I'll change the scale. There, I can read it now. I can grab that and these dimensions, you see they're unequal, so I can grab the dimensions and make them equal, and notice that line will move, and it'll be always centered in between this door thickness. I can check quickly the door thickness. Let me change this to shaded view. There's the door in gray. I can change the door thickness here, let's say 2 inches, and you'll notice, rather 2 feet in this case, you'll notice the door did become 2 feet. But that center line is always equal in the thickness of that door. Now it's a massive door, so let's go back and make that 1.5 inches. Hit OK. And again, that's controlled by this number here. That's the thickness right there. The skeleton is driving the thicknesses. So in the plan view, I need to tell Revit that this thing has a name. The reference plane has a name. I'll call it center glass. Perfect. So I can draw on top of that. So in the front view, I can draw right on top of that line by simply saying create, set the work plane to be, pick a plane, or name, I gave it a name, so I give it the name center glass. Hit OK. So now I can very quickly do another extrusion, a new extrusion inside of this area here. And again, be clear, you want to align these edges to the reference plane, not the model. So make sure you grab the reference planes and lock, align and lock to the reference planes. And as I accept it, you'll notice again that this is the wrong size. See, it's by default a foot. But in plan view here, you'll notice that it starts there on my center line and it goes back a foot. So what I want to do is make this come out toward me by 1/4 of an inch and be back behind this line by 1/4 of an inch, and 1/4 and 1/4 equals a half inch, assuming that's what I want. So select this 3D model. And here I can say, well, negative 1/4 of an inch will come toward me. See, it bumps out. And here, a 1/4 inch positive will go up from the center line outwards. And that is a 1/2 inch glass panel. If I want to control the thickness again, I'd have to make some reference planes and have a dimension there and control that thickness, if I like. Now, there's my door. And the side light is right here. If I go to shaded view, it's solid currently. There's no material assigned. In the front view, quickly, I want to add a little handle. So I go into Create, and I know Revit has handles. Under Components, I can load a component, and in the Door Family folder, right? These are all my families here. So my directories. Here's Door and Hardware. And then if I scroll through here with up and down arrow, I can find, for example, let's use this one here. Otherwise, you'd have to create your own model. Another generic model of handles, if you like. But I want to use that handle. I open it. And here it doesn't get placed in elevation view. Escape. Let's try plan view. Let's try again. Create, component. And this time, it does appear in plan view. That's where it wants to be placed, not in elevation. So I place it. I know that the center line of this is meant to be on top of this little line here. And if I look in front view, I haven't equalized this area here. I want this line to be equal in the middle of this 12-inch space. Quickly, I can grab the entire model. I can filter out just reference planes, just to make it easier on myself to see what I'm doing. And I can isolate those. I can then quickly put a dimension right here to force this to be equal. And then when I return, reset the temporary, I then have a line here that I can use to line up that handle. Before I do that though, I want to tell the handle thickness here to be the same thickness as the door. So here's the trick. Currently, in this drawing, this project, I have a parameter set up here. Whoops, this button for the thickness of this door. This object, if I go to Edit Type, has also a thickness set up here. Well, that number is independent of the door's thickness. So I need to tell this handle's thickness to be the same as the door's thickness. And I can do that by Edit Type of that handle and tell this here, thickness, to equal the thickness of the door. So I use this Associate button here, and I tell it, these are all my parameters currently available, and I tell it to be equal to this one, which is the door's thickness. Now you see it changed to 1.5 inches, and now they're forced to match one another. As this changes, this changes. A quick test, if I make this 2 inches, then apply, that becomes 2 inches. They're talking to one another. They're associated with each other. That's working now. Now I need to tell this handle to be attached to one of these planes. AL for align. Maybe line up this to that edge there. And lock it. So as the door gets thicker, this does not move. It's flush with the door. That's working. I go to elevation view. Need to make some alignments. AL to align. This line to the center of that lock. Lock it. This height to the center of that lever. Right there. Lock it. So again, as the door gets thicker, and you're going to want to flex it here, the door becomes 4 foot thick. You'll notice the handle comes with. It's always centered because of that measurement there, and it's locked on these reference planes. That's how these families work. Now, given that we've made this associated with the door category family, again, we did it here. It's a door, so when I hide the door category from my project, this door will disappear, as opposed to it being the generic category. I can also assign these to subcategories. So I can tell this door here, for example, to be here associated with subcategory, to be associated with one of these options here. And this is describing a panel. So I will choose panel. A little bit of organizing my project here. I will tell this glass here, right there, to be associated with glass as a subcategory. And you see that it changes the color of the lines. This here does not have a subcategory because that's a separate family. So there's my door panel. Now I need to have parameters that control the door's materials. And see here, there are no settings that have anything to do with the material of the door, even the material of the glass. They're missing. So let's make some. Okay, select the door. Here under material, I'd like to have a parameter that controls it. Rather than typing it here, I'd rather have a menu option here that has something to do with the material of the door and the glass. And the hardware, by the way. So we need 3 parameters. Door, glass, hardware. I can make them here, or I can simply select each piece and create them here, associate. And create a brand new parameter here at the bottom. Door, panel, material. And everything else has been already categorized correctly. This will be under the materials and finishes as a type parameter. And hit OK. Take the glass. Again, here associate with a new parameter, because I don't have a parameter here describing the glass. So here I'll do a door, glass, material. I'll be more explicit. Door panel, glass, material. Also type parameter. It's been set. Hit OK. Now, this handle, if I were to go edit type, has a material assigned to it already called handle material. A material parameter right there. However, I can change that handle from this menu here. I'd like it to be listed here, right there. As another option, when I select this door family, I want to be able to modify that option. So to control it, I have to tell this handle under edit type also to have a parameter here that's associated right there. And I'll make a new one, and I'll call it door handle material. Another type parameter. Hit OK, hit OK, hit OK, And notice here now, I now have a way of controlling the handle, the glass, and the door panel itself. If I made a little typo, I can use this button here to edit the parameter. And if I want to be consistent, I'll just call it door panel handle material, like the others. Hit apply, hit OK. This door is done. It's ready to be imported, or what's called nested, into another family. And we'll do that next. So let's begin the next step by creating a door using the door template in Revit. A new family, in this case, File, New Family. We'll go to the door template here and open. As you can see here, the door family actually comes with a pair of door frames here, an opening, a temporary wall, and if you were to go to 3D and change the scale of the text so you can see it better, for example, 6 inches to a foot, this is what you'd see in the door family itself. Hence the reason why I drew the door itself in a different family. I drew the door panel as a separate file that can get imported into this family and placed in this opening. But let's work on the logistics of getting this set up properly so it appears correct in a floor plan. So I will first create a brand new architectural template project. And just to show you how this works, I'll draw a simple wall here, and I'll take this door family and load it into this project here and place it here. So here's the task. I would first like to draw a line and an arc to describe the opening in the coarse level of detail. If I change this to medium, I would like to see the door frames appear, another arc, another line, but the line would come from the trim hinge point rather than this opening. Slightly different. And if I change this to fine, I would like to see, again, the door trim. And this time I'd like to see an actual door with a thickness show up here and the arc describing that opening. Obviously in 3D, I like to see the actual door itself with the side light. So there's several tasks that are involved. So let me walk you through them quickly. I'd like to get rid of 0 feet, just as a bit of formatting here. So I'll go to Manage, Product Units. I'll take the length, and I'll get rid of 0 feet by suppressing it here. Hit OK, hit OK. It's gone. I'll also change the scale of this drawing to maybe 3 inches, or maybe 1.5 inches, so that the text is not obnoxiously tall. So, first, let's deal with what we have. I like to have these frames appear in the floor plan when it's used in a project, only if the level of detail is medium or fine, not coarse. So I'll take these frames here. I held Control to select them both. I'll go to Visibility Settings, and I can tell these to appear in the plan view, and when the plan is cut in plan, these both allow the frame to appear. And I'd like it to appear only when the level of detail here at the bottom is set to medium or fine, not coarse. So if I hit OK, the visibility has been set, and you see they kind of gray out because currently I'm in coarse. But if I change to medium, you'll see it turns dark black. If I go to fine, the dark black. So if ever you see something sort of gray color, it's because in this level of detail, they're not meant to be visible. And I can also test it here by loading it into the project, my sample project number 1. And you'll see here, when I overwrite the existing, there they appear. Only because currently I'm in fine. If I go to medium, again, they appear. If I go to coarse, they're gone. Everything's working, functioning properly. So far, so good. Let's draw a arc and a line sprung from this point here, because when the trim is hidden, the hinge would be here as sort of a graphic standard. So let's first draw a reference plane that describes what the thickness is of this trim piece here. So I'm going to draw a line across here. I'll align it to the face of that trim, and then I'll lock these two dimensions together. And I'll force those to be equal to whatever this frame projected extension 1 inch equals. So as this number changes, these two lines grow. So I will make this equal to the same exact parameter there. And I will change the scale maybe to 3 inches, make it a little bit smaller. So when this thickness grows, these two lines get spread apart because the parameters are doing their job. I did that in order to find that intersection right there between these reference planes right there. So now I have this one and this one here at the bottom. Let's start with the one at the bottom. Select this reference plane and this reference plane using Control. Go to Hide Isolate and isolate the element to only deal with the reference planes that are important. I like to get rid of all the clutter. Next, go to Create and create a reference line here. And create it from the intersection of these two reference planes. And draw it longer than a typical door. There's your plane. Then you need to take this plane, or in this case a reference line, and snap it to, align it to, reference planes here and here. And you do that with the Modify Align tool here, or simply AL. Align to here, use the end of this reference line. You can find it by using Tab at the very end. Tab. You see a little dot there? Click, and that little dot at the end of this line is connected to this reference plane, and you lock it. Do the same here on the vertical. Align to here. Again, hit Tab if you have to find the little dot. Click on the dot, lock it. What that does is, as this line moves based on the wall's changing thickness, this line should follow that point right there. Let's test that. Let's undo this by going Reset. Let's change the wall's thickness and see if this line is in fact following that intersection right there. Choose the wall, make it 12 inches thick, and we're flexing the model. And we flex it, make it 12 inches, and you see it actually followed that point right there. Let's make the door wider. Go to Family Types, make the door 5 feet wide, for example, and that should hopefully follow the thickness, the width of the door. Hit Apply. So far, so good. That line is coming from that point right there. So let's go back and make this door back to 6 inches. This wall back to 6 inches. So this is your sort of skeleton that will get controlled by Revit in terms of angle, and on top of which we'll draw some graphics to describe a door at the coarse level of detail here of what I want to see in my drawing. This has to be used for that purpose. But before that, I like to control the angle of this from this reference plane. So again, I can go to Annotate, here's Angle, do a measurement from here to there, pull it out, and lock it in place. There. Now, this needs to be controlled, this angle. I don't have any parameters here controlling the angle of this line here, this reference line. So I can make a parameter here. Let's call it door angle. And lo and behold, here under Family Types, I now have a new parameter called door angle, which I can control by typing 30, and I can see it change. I can make 90, goes to 90 degrees. That is working. This is the skeleton I mentioned. On top of this line, I will draw a graphic of an arc and a simple line to create a coarse level of detail plan drawing. Let's do that next. I'm going to select this reference plane, that line there, and isolate those. So, next thing you do is you go to Create, and you want to set the work plane here to be this line here, this reference line. So you go Set, and it's very important. You pick the plane, and it's this plane here. Click on it. Then you can use Annotate, Symbolic Line. These are lines that you create that only appear in plan view. They don't appear in 3D at all. So I will simply take a symbolic line, and I will use the pick line command and draw it right on top of this reference plane, so they're stuck together. And I have to lock them in order to guarantee that relationship. Lock it. And I'll make it a little bit smaller. Okay. Now when I pull on that line here, here is the length of the line. And I'll control that with a parameter as well. I will tell this to be, if I choose that little icon there, a permanent dimension. And there's a permanent dimension. And this is the width of the door. Now again, if I look at my family types, I do have a width parameter already available here called width. So I can simply tell this line here to be the width parameter, to become the width parameter. So as the width changes, that line will change. I will then draw an arc here. Annotate. Symbolic line. This one here lets me draw an arc from the center line, center point. From here, from this edge here, this reference plane, up to this green reference plane here, lock that relationship together here and there. And the padlock closes. So now, that's the arc I want to draw up to that black line here. I need to tell the length of this, the radius, to be also the 3 feet here. So I'm going to click on this, make this dimension permanent, and tell this radius to also be the width of the door. So now let's go back and reset this, and let's load this into our project quickly. Do a little test here. And there's the door. That's what I wanted. On maybe an 1/8 inch scale drawing, I'll use coarse level detail. Maybe at a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch scale drawing, I want to see more detail here, like the trim, for example, or the door's thickness. But at a smaller scale, maybe coarse is fine. Maybe this is what I want to see. Let's test this door to make sure all the parameters are working properly. If I click on this door family and I edit type these parameters, I should see some changes. For example, I should be able to change the angle. I should be able to change the size of the door. I should see this arc grow and shrink based on the angle here. Back to 45. It's doing its job. This became 3 feet. Hit OK. So far, so good. And obviously in 3D, you see nothing, because symbolic lines don't show up in 3D. They only show up in plan views, plans and elevations. So let's close that. So there's the door functioning properly. Now, if I change this to medium, I need another door swing, except I want the door hinge to be here, for example, instead of here. Different type of door and swing. So let's draw that. So here's the door family. Okay, let's quickly isolate the lines that allow us to draw this second door swing. This reference line here, hold Control. This one here, describe the intersection point right there of the hinge. So let's isolate those. Then we can go to Create and create a new reference line for this intersection here, longer than a door. And we use AL to align vertically and horizontally this line to these reference planes. So here, use Tab to find the endpoint, click, lock. Align to here, use Tab to find the endpoint, lock. Then we will go to Create and set the work plane to be this plane here, so that I can draw another reference line here at a 90-degree angle, arbitrarily, length. And I'll use this in a second to draw the actual door. We need an angle to control this reference plane, so let's go to Annotate, Angle. Let's set up an angle here. And we know there's a parameter for the angle called door angle. So ideally, this and this should move together. It should work in tandem. So let's change the angle to 30 degrees and see if that's working. They are both moving together. They're working in tandem. So, back to 45. Now I can draw my door. So the door is going to be created using Annotate, not Symbolic line, but masking region, which is an object I can draw that's filled in with a white sort of hatch pattern. And that'll hide anything beneath it. So for example, if there's a floor hatch pattern, the floor pattern will appear whited out beneath the door. So we use this instead. Otherwise the door will appear transparent if I gave it a thickness. So let's use the pick line and pick this reference plane here. It makes it the same size, and then we pull it down a little bit so I know the difference between the reference line and this drafted masking region. Let me pick again, but make an offset of 2 inches for starters. There. Let me clear this out to 0. And then we draw some lines at the ends. Connect the dots here. Draw a little rectangle. This doesn't seem to be a 45-degree angle. But let's accept this for a second here. And let me fix this problem here. Let me do an alignment, AL, align to this edge with that reference plane. And let's make sure this line and this line are still moving together. So let's flex this number here, change the angle to 30 degrees, and let's see if in fact it's moving along with the door itself. And lo and behold, they actually move together. So that's working. Those parameters are doing their job. Now we need to establish the width of the door and strike an arc. The width is a distance, or DI, from this edge to this reference line. Because you cannot use that point. It will not work. So I'll take that, and that is the width of the door, which we have a parameter for called width. Then we need to draw, annotate, a symbolic line for the arc. So let's draw an arc using this center arc from this intersection here. Touch this bottommost reference plane, click, draw an arc up to this reference plane here, this reference line, click, and then lock it in place in both locations. Escape. Then when you touch this arc, this measurement here, which is kind of hard to read, so let me move this out of the way. This measurement here I can make permanent using that little icon there. And that is the width of the door, this radius. So I can tell that to be the width of the door yet again. So let's see if the arc is following the door swing and the door, and it follows the width of the door as the door changes thickness. So let's go back to here. Let's make the door 4 feet wide, and the arc is following. Let's change the angle to 90 degrees. Let's hope it's following, and it is. So this door and swing are doing their job. Let's go back to the start here where this was 3 feet, now it's 45 degrees. So now as you see, if I return here to reset, I now have a door and door swing out here that only should appear when level of detail is medium or fine. So let's click on the door. Let's click, hold shift. I'm sorry, not shift, but control. And click on the door swing. Those two, this and that. And let's go to, actually, let's grab the door first. Let's grab the door here. Go to visibility settings and make sure they only appear under medium and fine. Hit OK. Click on the door swing itself, the one that belongs to the actual door, this one here, and tell its visibility to only appear when you're at medium or fine, never coarse. So now let's load this into our model to make sure everything's functioning properly. So load it into the project, and let's see what happens when we're in coarse. When we're at coarse, you've got the arc of the door and that line there. That's working. When I'm in medium, there is the door and the arc, but then this inner line here, from that hinge point there, should not appear in medium. So its visibility is incorrect. It's appearing in medium when it should not. When I go to fine, you'll see that the innermost arc here and that line there is coming from this hinge. That's only for the coarse level of detail. So to quickly fix that, you return to your drawing and simply grab that line and tell its visibility to only be present when you're in coarse. this arc that goes to that line under visibility settings should only appear when this is set to coarse. So let's load that into our project to test. And lo and behold, you'll notice that here, when you're in coarse, you just get that arc, that line, from the wall. But when you go to medium, you get the actual door thickness itself and the arc from the frame, which also is present. And when you're in fine, same rules apply. So, two-dimensionally, in plan view, this is working exactly the way it should. This is exactly the appearance I'm after. Let's go back to course. Let me clear out any extra views here. I'm going to close out these views. Let's go back to my family. So, what's left to do? Well, now we have to add the door panel itself, the actual 3D model of the door panel itself, to this project. So, let me open it and have the file available. So on the screen here is the actual door family we built earlier. And I'm going to load this into our door template. I'm going to use load into family and bring it into family number 1, the door template itself. I haven't named it yet. And there's the door itself. Now, if you click on this door and go to edit type, you can access its parameters. And these are the ones we created. Material parameters here, and some dimensional parameters here that controls things like the width and height of this door. Which reminds me, we haven't set up the thickness of that door swing yet. Let's do that quickly before we move on to this step. This door here, if I were to isolate it here, needs a door thickness parameter set up. So, and again, this should be set to medium if I actually want to see it. So I'm going to grab that door and this reference plane using control, and in here I will isolate those two. I must have just lost it here. This, control, and this. Okay, there. I need to have a dimension from this line to this edge of the door to control its thickness, which we know should be called the thickness parameter. So I need one more dimension, di, from this line to this edge. That, escape, that should be controlled by a parameter called thickness. And here we'll set the parameter to 1.5, and we'll see this door change thickness in a second. Hit apply, and you see the door just changed. So now it's controlled by the parameter. That's great. This is done. So, with that aside, here we want to do the same kind of controls to this door. This door has its own family, and this door is currently nested or copied into this door template. So this is nested into this. Now, to access this parameter for this door, I need to access edit type here. Ideally, what you want to have happen is you want to be able to go into this project, this door family, go to edit type here, family types, here, and control this door and these settings for this opening here in one menu. So because, for example, if we go back to our project here, this is our sample project, if I click on this, I only have two areas to change this door. Either instance parameters here or edit type parameters here. And currently, there is no settings in this menu here for the door's materials, door's glass material, the handle. They don't exist. They haven't been created. So, back to this family. What we need to do then is have this menu have some settings here to control that door. How do we do that? We simply tell this door's parameters to be associated with this project's parameters. And it's done quickly here. You click on the door, you go edit type, and right here, you use these buttons here to create a new association between that family and the current family you have open here. So I need to recreate these parameters. I will click on this button here, and I'll make a new parameter here called, let's say, door family, just to make it different. Door family, handle, material, just to prove my point that I'm making new parameter that it's going to equate to this parameter there. So I call it something slightly different. It's a type parameter. Hit OK. I hit OK, a little equal sign shows up. So this answer is equal to this parameter now. This one, create a new parameter. Door, family, glass, material. Type parameter. Hit OK. Hit OK. Done. This one, new parameter. Door, family, panel, material. Hit OK. Hit OK. And finally apply. And now you'll notice that I can now control this door using this project's parameters right here. They're now available to me here. Furthermore, I need to tell the thickness of this door to be controlled by the thickness available in this project, in this door template. Also the width of the door itself. So let's click on this, edit type, and also associate these measurements. The thickness, width, and height need to be associated with the settings from this project, this door template, not the door panel. In the same method here, you associate. So this, I don't have to create a new parameter because I already have one called thickness. So this thickness of the door should be equal to this thickness of the current project I have open. The width here should equate to the width I have open. The height here should equate to the height of the file I currently have open, the door template. Hit apply. So now you'll notice that when I go to parameters here and I change these settings, it won't only change the opening, it'll also change that family because those settings for that door are now associated with these settings. So as this thickness becomes a foot, you see the door gets quite large here in the drawing and obviously here. We know that's perhaps 1.5 inches. That parameter is working. This door becomes 5 feet long. Notice that it becomes 5 feet long here, but this drawing also becomes 5 feet long because they're now working together in tandem. So this is all functioning properly. I have materials for this setup, but I don't have materials for that setup yet. And we'll do that in a second. But let's first align this door to these reference planes to locate this properly. So let's do an AL, align to this reference plane here, and pick that long line here. That's the reference plane of that door right there. Click and lock it together. Next, we'll align the door to the reference plane here at the hinge location. So AL to align to this place with the edge of that door, and again, lock it into position. Finally, we need to tell the door only to appear in certain level of details. In this case, go to Visibility Settings, and this door should only appear in Plan View in no situation. In this case, you simply turn off the plan view and the left-right view, which would be like the east and west elevations. You only want to see this door in elevation, which is front and back. It won't appear in any floor plans whatsoever. In terms of 3D view, it'll appear in coarse, medium, and fine level of detail, which is fine. Hit apply, load into the project. Here's my sample project. Hit OK, overwrite the file, and let's test it. This is the standard door. Now let's do a quick floor to prove my point that the hatch pattern should be obstructed by the door. If the floor is a wooden floor, when I switch this to a medium level detail, you see the floor is whited out here. That is a masking region. as opposed to simply just drawing 4 lines, which will make the door look transparent. So that's working as well. Let me erase that floor. Go to Fine Level Detail. Same look as medium. That works. Go to 3D. The door appears right there. Now here's one thing that's not happening. If I were to change this to shaded view, you see that the doors don't have any materials applied to them here. If I choose the door itself and go to my properties here, edit type, here I can start changing and manipulating the materials. So let's say that the glass, in this case I'll choose those 3 buttons there. I'll choose glass, a glass material, a generic glass material here. I'll use clear. And for the panel, maybe I'll choose cherry. Hit apply. But notice what happens here. The door changes. The handle is assigned the material also here as aluminum. But the door frame is not changing because the door frame has not been assigned any materials. So it stays its default gray color. There is no parameter for this door under edit type to control the trim color. Let's fix that. Return back to the door here, door family. Grab the trim, and here, under the material, let's associate it with the parameter that we already have, called the family door panel. When that becomes cherry, that same material will be used for the trim itself. So that material has been assigned to this piece, and then I grab that piece there, use the exact same setting, door family panel material. So if the door is cherry, this trim will be cherry. Upload into the project, accept those changes, take a look in 3D, and lo and behold, the frame now is following the same material on both inside and out. Finally, there's one little detail here where the door itself doesn't have sort of a trim piece inside here, so the side of the opening is appearing here. It's visible. Maybe I'll draw a large trim piece here to act like a doorstop or something. But it needs to be included in this model to make that work. So let's quickly do that in plan view. Let's go back to our door family here. Let's draw a little trim piece here that goes up and around the opening. The best place to draw that would be the front elevation, or in this case they call it the interior side. I'm standing here looking toward the door. It's called interior. Now let's see what happens when I go to create and I create an extrusion, and you take a look here. The extrusion is going to be built from what's called the reference plane center front back. Let's cancel that for a second. Where is that? Let's go to the plan view. If I click on this little line here, hit tab if you have to, that is called center front back. The extrusion will be built from there as if that's a blackboard of some sort, and it'll be drawn from there out toward me. So in the interior elevation, let's say I accept that relationship. I'll go to create, extrude, and I'll trace this opening. I'll pick lines along these reference planes. That one there, that one there, that one there. Only the one lock came back, but watch what happens here. If I were to draw this out here, let's offset this by a ½ inch or so. Now, I didn't lock these objects to the reference planes, but sometimes it'll accept and understand that they should be connected together, these pink lines here and the actual reference planes. So there's my frame. Let's accept it. Let's look what happens in 3D. There's the frame itself. And you see in plan view, it's being created from that reference plane there, out toward me. If I select it, it tells me here, it starts at 0, so it's flush with that plane, and it's a foot positive. It's coming toward me and a foot thick. Now what it should do is become flush with the face of the door right there. And I do that by making another reference plane. I copy this reference plane down here, and I do a little dimension here. And I want this dimension to be the thickness of the door. So I tell this to be the thickness. There. Then I can tell this object, which has that little grip right there. I tell it to align with that green reference plane right there. So AL to align, pick that line and pick the edge of this trim and lock it. So now it's stuck at that location. Now, what about the length of this? How big would you like this to be? Well, if the wall changes thickness, then this could be left behind if I choose a particular location. Like, for example, if I place it here, for example. If I place it there and the wall got thicker, this would get left behind because there's no reference plane controlling how thick that is, which currently is 3 and some odd inches there. So what I'll do is I'll take this reference plane here and I will duplicate it also. Now I can't duplicate it because it's locked, so what I'll do is I'll do a create reference plane and I'll set it out 1/4 inch away in front of this line here. And I will lock these two together with the dimension string, or distance, DI. And I will tell those to be stuck at all times here with the padlock at 1/4 inch. Then I'll tell this object here to be aligned with that reference plane. AL to align to there with that. Lock it. So no matter how thick the wall becomes, this will always be a 1/4 inch away and it'll follow the thickness of the wall. Let's test that hypothesis. This wall becomes 12 inches thick. Suddenly that trim gets longer and it follows. It also starts back there by the door. That's working. If this wall got narrower, it's following. If it got really thin, it's following. It's doing its job. The one thing it's not doing is it doesn't have a material assigned to it. So this currently has no materials applied here. But we do have a parameter for the trim, and I like this to match the same material as the trim. So I will associate it with the panel of the door parameter. So when I go to my family types here, and I change this material, it will change not only the trim and the door, but also this little edge piece. So when I load it in my project, take a look in 3D, there you can see I now have this little trim board in here, and it matches the same material as the door. I can also make a special extra parameter just for the trim board and make it a different material if I like. I can do the same with the trim. Currently they're all using the same parameter. And that is the final result of the custom door panel being loaded into the door family and being used in a project. Those parameters are now here in edit type. And that controls that object. That should be 1.5 inches, by the way. Hit apply. And there you have it. Feel free to send me comments and questions, and I'll be happy to reply. Okay? Till next time. Bye for now.